Morning, folks. Welcome back to Threes in. Bubble here. So I have this thread running through the channel. It's titled 54, and what it represents is a chronology of my experience in undergraduate pilot training, UPT, 54 years ago, from April 1970 through April 1971. We were class 7107. So I've been able to go back and pick up certain events that were prominent in my training and share them with you throughout that year. I left off in early August, late July, early August, because of this PCS move of ours from North Carolina to here in Ohio. So I'm going to go back here in the next few days and try to pick up where I left off and bring this thread up to date. I'm going to begin with my T-37 cross country in September 1970. But before I do that, I'm going to comment on a couple other things that occurred in August that I haven't shared with you yet. Now, I'm able to do this because I saved my flight records from that period. They're getting yellow now, but I can still read them. And in these flight records, I have the instructor I flew with, the mission number, whether it was solo or dual, complete or non-complete, the grade, the time, number of landings, number of approaches, a time we took off, and of course the date. So I'm able to look at this and really I know what the events were, but I'm able to put them together a little closer this way. In August, I flew several rides, dual and solo, and several links, link trainers. I also had 3 academic exams beginning the 18th of August, the 14th of August, somewhere in there, all the way up through the 17th of September. And as I've mentioned before, I tend to have a little streak of ADD, ADHD, and WD-40 running through my core fiber. And it's driven me nuts at times. I just tend to get ahead of myself, and then I get behind myself, and then I'm standing beside myself. But at any rate, the first grade I got, not sure what the exam was, I think it might have been instruments, was I scored 28 out of 30 correct and got a 93.3. Then we come down here to navigation, and I scored 32 out of 40, which is an 80, which is the minimum. And God, I hated that. At any rate, you're bouncing off the bottom like that. I never flunked a test in academics, but I bounced off the floor a couple of times. And then later in the month, in weather, I scored 25 out of 30. I was able to come all the way up to an 83.3. Like I said, it was always a crapshoot when I walked out of that test. Sometimes I think, man, I aced that one, and I'd get an 80. And other times, I'd tank that one. I'd get a 93.3, whatever it was. Been a challenge all my life like that. Been one hell of a ride, by the way. So anyway, I'm sitting at our table there in C flight in T-37s one morning, and this guy walks up to the desk. It was Captain George Dunkleberg, and I looked up at him and I stood up. He outranked me. He was a captain. I was a first lieutenant. At any rate, I stood up and I said, "Can I help you, sir?" And he says, "Yeah, Bob." He said, "I have been assigned to fly with you for your T-37 cross country, and in light of your check ride and how that came out, if you don't feel comfortable flying with me, I can totally understand." And I looked at him and I said, "You know, Captain Duncle, I'm the one that pinked that damn ride, not you." And I said, "I really enjoyed flying with you. So if you're okay," I said, "I'd just soon continue the mission as assigned. I'd be fine with that." I didn't hold it against George. I'm the one that pinked the check ride. I kind of felt bad for him having to sit over there in the right seat thinking about the bozo he was flying with. The bozo would be me. At any rate, couple days later, whenever it was, we briefed and then took off on a Friday afternoon for a 4-hop cross country, a planned 4-hop cross country. Now this was kind of interesting. We took off out of Randolph and flew for 1.4 all the way over to Kelly Air Force Base, about 30 miles away. And I'd flown by Kelly numerous times. It's on the south side of town, San Antonio. So we landed at Kelly for gas and go, and refueled, of course, and then we took a look at the weather and everything you do. Then we took off, and our next stop was over at Laughlin. So we flew all the way from Kelly over to Laughlin. And there we landed, non-eventful flight. Went to the Officers Club for dinner that night, and then the next morning got out to pre-flight for a 1-hop leg over to Laredo Air Force Base. But the thing I remember about that morning was seeing John McBroom looking through his pockets for the key to the airplane. Now, we had just started locking these airplanes on cross countries, and they had this Rube Goldberg device that was like a triangle, and you locked it in place, you snapped it in place under the dash when you were flying, and then unclipped it and brought it up, and it clipped into the stick, and there was a locking system. You put a padlock in, and it was secure. The most critical thing about that system was remembering where you put the key. And I don't know what John did with it. I don't know. But he couldn't find it. Now, it's not hard, John. You take the key, lock the airplane, put the key in your pocket here, and next morning, when you get up to go fly, you reach in the pocket, get the key, and off you go. Well, John couldn't find it. And we didn't feel like hanging around, so we just took off, headed all the way down Rio Grande to Laredo. John eventually got somebody from maintenance to come out and cut off the lock and caught up with us later that morning, later that afternoon, whatever it was. At any rate, we spent the rest of the day and the evening in Laredo. And then on Sunday, we took off and flew back to Randolph, shot a couple approaches and landing. So Friday afternoon, Saturday, and then Sunday on a T-37 cross country, and we never left the state of Texas. That was kind of cool. At any rate, I later ran into George at Vance Air Force Base in probably 1977, I'm thinking. He had come back to the command in T-38s. And I saw him in a hallway, and he looked familiar, but then once he turned around, he had that name that ran from his zipper all the way to his armpit. I knew, and it started with Dunkleberg, you know. Oh yeah, I know that guy. So I walked up to him and I said, Major Dunkleberg, I said, Bob Holliker, really nice to see you. And he kind of looked at me. I could still see him today. I could see recognition in his face, but he wasn't quite sure. And I can't blame him for that. My God, when you end up with a couple thousand hours of IP time in either the T-37 or T-38, you've flown with a lot of different guys. So anyway, I looked at him, I said, I once flew a T-37 check ride with you, and you pinked me, sir. And he looked at me like, ooh. And I said, rest assured, it was my fault. I said, I actually pinked myself. Now, just for those of you that are new to the channel that aren't familiar, a pink is an unsat. And back in the day, when they used to have manual grade books, they would take a red pen and put on the U in your grade book in red. I don't know how it morphed into a pink. I guess it just kind of sounded nice. I don't know. But anyway, that's the terminology. And we carried it all the way through for the total time I was in Air Training Command. Did you pink them? Yep. But I don't want to get off track here. I'll talk about that in another video, I suppose. At any rate, I worked it with T-38. I can't remember what they call that. Where you get pre-qual. I worked to where I could fly with George. And boy, did I have a good time flying with him. Just really enjoyed it. And I'm glad he came into my life at the time he did, because he truly is a man of grace. He was very graceful with me when I pinked that ride, and then on that cross country, I learned a great deal from him. But I learned a lot about myself too, about accepting responsibility is always the best way to go. I think very fondly of George. I don't talk to him much. He's on my Facebook page, and every now and then I'll see where he'll weigh in with a like or something like that. But I still admire the man, and I became a better pilot and a better officer for that brief encounter with him in my life, and I'm very grateful for it. So with that being said, this is Bobo. Base gear. Stop.